I think that I didn't choose editing. Editing chose me. So one day I walked into those edit rooms and I saw magicians. I saw alchemists. I saw the real heroes of filmmaking making stuff out of nothing. And I was like, that's the job for me. Like, I want to do that.
Welcome to Academy Panel. My name is Sean Finney, Executive Vice President of Membership and Awards at the Academy of Motion Pictures. Today, I'm honestly honored and just so excited to sit down with the film editors of this category for the 94th Academy Awards. To set the stage a little bit, we're not gonna talk so much about what they do, but more about who they are and how their individual and collective journeys have brought them to this point here. To open up the room with you all, thank you first and foremost for all joining. Congratulations again. I first want to start and understand, when was your first memories of wanting to be a film editor? When did you know that it was even a profession that you could explore?
I didn't actually ever want to be an editor. I mean, how it happened for me was that my parents were given an 8mm camera for their wedding present and a projector. And I was the kid that figured out how to mend the film when it broke in the gate. You know, it used to do a little lava lamp display when the lamp burnt the film, and you know, you saw your memories disappear in a puff of smoke. And I was the kid that figured out how to do the glue joins in the family. And then that led me to kind of like having a paper round and buying up old Max Sennett comedies and showing them really slow, whilst playing my father's Wagner records at his 78s really slow, and sort of getting depressed, honestly. And for me, I wanted to be a composer for the most part, and I spent a long time being a composer, but it was always actually the marriage of the two that was the thing that really excited me, and still does, is sound or music and image, you know.
Well, I went to college thinking I was going to study journalism. Broadcast journalism, and I got there, and my mother was a single mom with 3 kids. I'm the oldest, and she would not let me apply to NYU or Columbia. She's like, you set precedent, you're out of here, leave town. So I left for a year, and then I convinced her to let me transfer to NYU Film School because someone at my other university had worked there and was talking about all the great stuff they had. And I went, I want to go check out this NYU. So I went there, and I made all my own short films. I directed, I wrote, I did animation. I kind of tried everything. I was a cinematographer, and it really took one professor kind of pointing me in the right direction. I was competing to get my senior thesis project made, and I had my script, and I'd go for regular meetings with my professor, Lamar Sanders, who still teaches there. And I remember it was a 3rd or 4th meeting in his office, and we were talking about the script and the problems, and he said to me, do you really want to make this movie? And I just looked at him and I went, no, not really. Now, coincidentally, I had an editing job. Like, I had talked my way into an editing job that summer before. So my entire last year of college, I was going part-time and working as an editor, cutting on a documentary series for PBS, where I literally went in interviewing for one job and convinced them to hire me for this other thing. But I still didn't consider editing, even though I'd edited all my own films, until this professor said, you know, you're the only kid in school who actually has a job in the movie business. Do you like editing? And I said, yeah, actually, I really like it. I always hated directing. I didn't like so many people. I didn't like how out of control it was, you know? And he said, well, if you really like it, you should just stick to it, and you'll have your pick of the best projects in school. And he was right. And so I just never looked back after that. So I found it very early.
And he's still teaching.
He's still teaching. I just saw him in New York a few weeks ago. We had some champagne.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was something I thought about, but something that seemed really like just like a long shot, like to become an editor. I didn't really know any editors, and I kind of grew up in my parents are both blue-collar workers, so it was kind of not something that really, like, even going to art school was like a crazy idea. But I kind of eventually, just slowly through friends, kind of got into like more the art scene in Melbourne, and a housemate was making music videos, and he was really struggling to find an editor, and I literally did it once and for like 14 hours straight. And then the next day I kind of hit up every editor in town for an internship and basically just worked for free for the next 9 months and
Starters, you mean to go on with a 14-hour day, right?
just kept on going. And like literally it hasn't stopped since. That was like 15 years ago. So yeah, it kind of got the bug, I guess,
And clearly, the world loves it too.
which is helpful. Thanks, world.
What about you?
Well, you know, it's funny. I just wanted to be an artist. I just wanted to do anything. Like, film was just another medium. At first, I wanted to be an architect. I went to architecture school for the longest time. Worked for an architecture firm in the '80s. You know, the recession came. I was like, maybe that's not such a good idea. And then, you know, I went to college and I started doing photography. I started doing printmaking. And I started doing collages. And collages, in a lot of ways, was like taking stuff that I found on the ground, put it together, mix paint. And I was like, oh, there's something about this process that lends itself to something. And then somebody said, oh, maybe you should take a filmmaking class. And I was like, okay, that'd be great. Cut to going to New York. I'm like sleeping on people's floors because I can't afford a place yet. And then somebody says, hey, we have an opening at this show called TV Nation, and there's 8 editors that work on this show. So one day I walked into those edit rooms and I saw magicians, I saw alchemists, I saw the real heroes of filmmaking, making stuff out of nothing. And I was like, that's the job for me, like I want to do that. And slowly but surely I got a network of people, they started hiring me, and I think that I didn't choose editing chose me in a lot of ways, and you know, I just think that that's how it is for most of us. Yeah.
Well, I was always obsessed with film as a kid and was a movie nut. And it didn't matter what the weather was, I was going to be inside watching a movie somewhere. So I knew I wanted to do something in filmmaking. And when I was old enough, I banged on every door I could and sent letters wherever I could to try and get a PA job. And I did, and hated it, because I learned that, you know, just because you're on a set doesn't mean you're connected creatively to what's happening. My first job was actually on a really big film guarding horses overnight in South Philly, and that was the end of it for me. So I kind of did a reset and thought about, well, where is the creativity? And I knew from making my own films as a kid, however bad they were, that editing was the most exciting part to me, when it really comes together. So I sought out an internship in New York when, you know, you were there too. Within the indie world there were plenty of opportunities of low and no budget. And I was lucky enough to hook up with an editor, Bill Pankow, who hired me as an apprentice, and then I became his assistant, and then like that for 10 years of assisting.
I love it because no journey is the same, right? Everybody's individual path and how they find it. And like you said, editing chose you. As an audience member, I think we get to benefit off of the work, the integral work that you all put into that. And I'm always curious, we benefit, we see the story that you helped tell. What did you learn from the stories that you helped tell as it relates to the films that you were nominated for?
It just sort of solidified something that I already knew, which was that the job can be so incredibly joyful and amazing if you are working with wonderful people. My director is just amazing, and my crew and all that, and the producers and the writer. I mean, we're all good friends now, and I think I see the love on the screen, and so that's sort of what I walk away from this movie.
I think the honest answer for me is I'm not sure I know yet. And I guess what I mean by that is I try to work on different kinds of films all the time with different collaborators all the time. And I often find myself dealing with a challenge on a film creatively, politically, otherwise, and somewhere in the back of my head, an experience that I've had on another film is brought to bear that benefits everybody that I can share. So it's just more experience with somebody who happens to be brilliant in his creative energy, you know, that I don't know that I've processed it fully. But you know, check back in a year and I'll probably have some example from this experience that I could bring forward to the next one.
I love that.
You know, with Dune, I was on my 4th collaboration with Denis Villeneuve, and I'm so used to that side of his face. So during the kind of pandemic, it was like I suddenly saw the front of his face, and that was kind of a shock. And I mean, the right-hand side of his face is sort of the dark side of the moon to me. So, I mean, there was a lot to adapt to in the pandemic, and I think I found that I'm more resourceful than I thought I was. One of the other things about it is that June, we'd done Blade Runner, which was very much, trying not to trample on the carpets of a very much beloved cinema classic. And with June, it's like even more scary because the Herbert fans, they've already been so-called disappointed once, and there's, it's been a notoriously tricky book to adapt. And there we are with a kind of huge weight of expectation. And, actually the film had inside it some great comfort in that, which is it has the Litany of Fear, which is this brilliant piece of writing, I shall not fear. Fear is the mind killer. And it's like it became something that I'd say to myself sometimes, because it's true that when you hear about a project, sometimes for me, being slightly afraid is a good thing. It's a good sign. You're going to have to adapt and learn some new skills or go further. And with June, we brought all the weight of expectation. And for that also, in a way, I had to bring that home during the pandemic. Like many of us, we had to adapt to working in, garden sheds and granny flats and,
Bedrooms.
dining rooms. Yeah. And our kids all had to hear dialogue go round and round and round and round. So what I was trying to say is that I think I learned, that fear is actually a good thing. And it really motivates you. And we were so motivated on this film to try and get it right. And in a way, the pandemic, although it brought, tremendous challenges and, of course, tremendous disruption and heartache throughout the world. But, for us, honestly, it was terribly useful to have that moment to stop and pause and to think about how we could improve the film for a month or two while everything was closed down. Mm-hmm. So it was a challenging time, but I think I learned, I'm quite resourceful.
You have a new slogan, too.
I do.
Yes.
I know. I'll get the tattoo.
Yeah.
For me, probably the thing I take out of telling the story was actually meeting Jane Campion and getting to work with her. And, we're from totally different generations in a sense. She's been at this, this is my 5th film. And, she's been doing this for decades. And I just watching her work and the courage she works with, and like she's just such a risk-taking artist, and like believes in her instincts and the story she's telling so much. And it was incredibly inspiring to see someone with just that mentality and the way and the braveness she works with, and the courage to really tell pretty unique stories that are, really going for something and a kind of completely concrete point of view on these things. And that was incredibly inspiring.
I mean, I'm hearing a lot of different, you talked about like the politics as it relates to on set, and you're talking about seeing his face, full on for the first time, and then obviously your admiration for Jane. I'm wondering, what is the process like when it comes to notes with the director on editing? How does that process with the director and the relationship work exactly?
Well, it differs with different directors, of course, but personally, I love directors that let me do my own thing, find my way with the footage, and then we could talk to them together about what's working and not, or not. A director for me that sits down and says, I need things like this exactly, I don't really want to be, like, that's not something I'm interested in. This is a way for, everyone thinks that editing is this technical endeavor. It's not, it's the way we express ourselves as artists, our DNA is flowing through the footage, and our choices is what makes the film alive. And that said, if Lynn's like saying I need you to try to put this line of dialogue in the middle of this complex musical number, I'm going to try to do that. But there isn't oftentimes with the directors I work, whether it's Lynn or John M. Chu, they give me the freedom to explore, and we talk about ideas and feelings, but not so much like, I need you to shave off 3 frames here and put this together. A lot of times Lynn would come up, he's writing music downstairs for Encanto, and then he'll come upstairs and say, okay, what do you got? It's like, what do I have got? You're Lin-Manuel Miranda. Again, that's that freedom that brings the best out of me, for somebody who gives me that freedom to bring my game, not the other way around.
It's absolutely different with each filmmaker. I think there are no set rules. I've worked with directors who were into every minutia and every cut down to frames, and directors who don't want to know. They just want it to work. But particularly with a first-time director, I've kind of developed a strategy where I try and find a way to get them engaged in the process in a way that we have a dialogue, so that I'm not showing them what I think is right. I'll show them what I think the options are and the choices are and the issues are, and it's usually more than one version that I have ready, so that we can explore different avenues.
Go back and forth.
And there's a dialogue,
Yeah.
and that they're automatically engaged in it, and they're not just being presented something that they have to critique. That is, to me, the best strategy to start that conversation, and it also establishes trust, I think. With Lin, he does exactly what you need from a director, as an editor, which is to be decisive and clear and also collaborative. So though it's like the perfect mix. I've been in the case when it isn't, but that's a situation where we didn't have to work to establish that relationship. He understood the process instinctively.
Yeah, I mean, what Andrew said about developing trust is so important, and that starts during production, especially when you're working with someone for the first time, showing several versions of scenes, giving them feedback every single day, so that they can see their film coming together before their eyes, and also getting verbal, whether it's written or over the phone, input from you about why things are working, what is really working, and also where the problems are of, I didn't expect the performance is a little too this or a little too that. You might want to correct this, how do you feel about it? And, or, you need a shot, you missed something, or I would really love to have this moment. I think it's essential, and you didn't get it because your actors are there and your sets are dressed. So, and by doing this every single day and just not being so precious about what you're doing, like, how it doesn't have to be super polished, but just to start getting in front of them immediately. And for them to hear from you every day, they know that you've got this. You're in the edit room, you've got their back, and they can trust you. And so by the time they come in and see the whole film together, it's not some shock. They've seen a lot of it. Maybe at a certain point they get too busy. Maybe they've seen 2/3 of it or something. But you look at it, and then yes, every director's different. Some directors like to start with the last act. Some like to start at the beginning and go sequential. Some are just like, I want to beeline for the middle. But whatever it is, you're having a lot of conversations about intent, character, story, how that's working in the first pass. And while directors are nearby, there's a lot of heavy lifting the editor does on their own throughout that time period until you start really fine-tuning the last things. Then they're in there more and more often as the process evolves, because now it's like, okay, we have a real problem, we got to dig in together on this one, or let's try and calibrate that one thing that's been bugging you all the time, and stuff like that. So I think in general, you start with like a lot of bigger sweeping work, restructures, and dealing with the bigger problems, or recalibrating like a character arc and things like that. And then it's, gets finer tuned from there. So that sort of dictates how the relationship goes to some degree.
With Denny, it's my fourth film, so I'm so glad I don't have to waste all that energy trying to kind of get somebody to trust me, honestly. Not to demean directors, but it is like being a horse whisperer and trying to kind of get a horse to eat out of your hand. And it can take a long time. I remember one director sat down on day one and just said, I don't need you. And I was like, well, let's just see about that, But, Denny, I really like the way that he directs me. And that's the secret of why I love working with him, is that he talks to me like he would an actor. He doesn't necessarily go and find the solution himself, but he points me in the direction of what the problem, we find out what the problem is. And there's also, he pays me this massive compliment in the middle of working very, very hard and some scenes go through turmoil over a long period of time, he does pay me the great compliment. When he likes something, he just sticks with it, and it's like never changes. So there's many scenes in Dune that just never changed from the day after it was shot. And the first take, I mean, you know, there's a breakfast scene where there was, you know, Denny and his DP and his amazing team, production designer, they've got everything very well planned. So in a way, as an editor, my role in that is to make the beautiful cabinet that they were preparing in pieces, but also to go, you know, but have you tried this, you know, and subvert the plan sometimes. And when he does, he always seems to celebrate those things that he likes. So it gives you, you know, it doesn't negate the fact there's many scenes that we just never seem to get there until the last minute, and you try everything. But, you know, it's a context, it's a beautiful balance between of striving for things in the right way.
I guess it's not so much notes from a director, it's like a conversation that's ongoing with the director. It's like, I don't feel like I'm ever getting like notes or like, here, like, yeah, the 3 frames here or 3, you know, it's not that. It's like finding what the problems are, finding solutions, and having that conversation that just one thing leads to another, and it's an exploration, and you're kind of on a journey together, finding and trying to figure things out. And yeah, there's always that one scene that, you know, you can cut it 90 times and it's not quite right. And you finally get there, and that's, you know, you've had a million conversations about it and you've tried to figure it out, and finally you do. And there's other scenes where, yeah, it's pretty much there on the first pass, and it's one of those scenes that just everything came together well, and the performances are perfect and didn't need to be cut down or, you know, or anything like that. So yeah, I find it's really about just getting in a groove together and really getting into, ideally having a really great relationship where you're kind of just hanging out, making something, the director knowing how invested you are, like that you're invested on the same level that they are in terms of, and I think that means a lot to people to have that kind of collaborator, and the trust just builds over time, yeah.
And you get so many notes from so many other places, you know? So, you know, it's great that, you know, you establish this relationship where you understand the language. But, you know, we always find the most important feedback is with an audience. And that's the undeniable. And it's a great aid to an editor sometimes who's maybe been hoping that something can be, like, reduced in the story. And you want to give it a chance. And then, you know, you can smell whether something's working or not. And that's very important. And I think producers' notes, not in this case actually, but in the past, they can be very, you know, they can know what the problem is, but not necessarily the right way to find a solution. So, you know, it's kind of there's a multitude of different ways of getting notes in a cutting room.
I have a saying sometimes, which is, "What's the note behind the note?" Which often comes
Well, you
out
know,
of that
the
conversation.
classic one, I'm sure we've all found that people are concentrating on a scene being too slow or not working. And then you realize it's not that scene, it's the one before it. And,
It's the setup or the
setup.
or the conclusion or whatever it is that's side glance.
It's our job to decipher what the problem really is.
Real diagnosis.
You know?
And how to fix that.
Yeah.
And you're just constantly threading that needle throughout the entire, like you said, it could be that scene, but you're doing that for the entire film in its entirety the whole time. I'm curious because I know, you know, when people think Oscars, right, road to the Oscars, they also don't think about how exhausting that is or what that could be as it relates to the conversations, the campaigning that goes into it, but also just what it is. Sometimes being on set, you spoke about a scene, sometimes you're doing it 70 times, you're locked in and you're in the trenches with certain individuals. I'm wondering, for you all, like, how do you find your peace? What is your community? And outside of the people, the amazing people you said that you're working with, but how do you find your peace? How do you unplug when you're in the vortex and you have to step outside of it sometimes?
honestly, that was, in the pandemic, that wasn't something I was kind of quite prepared for, was how important the kind of cast of visiting characters to my home became. So, you know, I'm talking about like the Spectrum guy or the delivery drivers and the handyman. The handyman became this sort of refuge for me. His text always made me laugh. And he was spending a lot of time in the house, and there was a lot of wiring and IT things to kind of get all the kit set up. He was very involved with that. But I mean, I'll give you an example. That the day before the Oscar nominations, he'd set up, he couldn't fix a sink, I'm taking you in territory I know isn't necessarily of interest to film students in the future, but he
great.
set up this bowl under a sink because he couldn't fix it, and he sent me a text saying, don't forget to check the bowl under the sink. And the day of the Oscar nominations, you might be surprised in Los Angeles to find out this handyman, when he's not a handyman, is an actor. It's surprising for LA, I know. And he sent me this text saying, "Congratulations. Don't forget to check the bowl under the sink." And I felt so sort of grounded by that.
I'm a huge proponent of working fairly normal hours because I need to unplug and sort of separate my brain from the movie to recharge, to see it fresh the next day or on Monday. I'm very big on work-life balance. Exercise. I exercise like crazy, a few times, at least a few times a week. And I have kids, and I've just tried to, I focus like nobody, when I'm at work. But by 7 o'clock, I'm pretty burnt out because I've been staring at that screen all day, and I like to just step away just to get perspective on what I'm doing and clear my head.
I like to work pretty regular hours as well, if possible. Like, not too crazy, because it's a long process, and it's months and months. I've got a 20-month-old, and he doesn't know much about films at this stage. So any conversation with him is definitely like getting away from it. Also, my partner's she's not a real film person. She comes from the fashion industry, so we don't talk shop, we don't talk film, which is so helpful for me to like not have to go home and talk film, which I know a lot of friends, everyone's in the industry, so it's like even home talk is film talk. So that's really lovely. And then just MBA, Yeah.
Yeah, it's that life-work balance. I have two kids. I have a 15-year-old and 8-year-old. They need to see me. I need to be there for them. So yeah, I don't want to work 16-hour days if I can help it. I want to be able to see them, put them to bed. Also my wife occasionally will say it's just a movie, and I got to remember that. I want to be an artist so bad. I just, that's all that matters sometimes in your brain. And it's tough with the editor because you're cutting all the time. You never stop, Even when we go home, we're thinking about the edit and rearranging stuff, restructuring, working on that performance. There's this thing in Tick, Tick, Boom with Jonathan Larson's in a fight with his girlfriend, and right in the middle of the fight, he's doing this thing on the side of her shoulder, and it's like he's writing a song about this fight. That's what we're all experiencing all the time. So we're just trying to find ways to disconnect and just try to be more grounded, and it's tough. It's tough to do it, but yeah, and then exercise and trying to just do stupid stuff that has nothing to do with this industry is helpful. But just trying my best to be grounded when I can.
Yeah, it's definitely been more of a challenge in the past 2 years or so to separate work and life, having a movie in your bedroom. But it's taken some time, but I think I figured out some disciplines for that, of where it's time to shut it off. Dinner time means it's over. But the wheels are always turning. But I do try to find breaks whenever I can, where I've distracted myself with whatever it is, no matter how mundane or stupid. And it always helps to reset.
I got some tips for myself. Listening to that was really for me. You all sit here as Oscar nominees, and I'm just curious, what would you say to your younger self, knowing what the Oscars, or maybe what you thought your idea of contributing to this beautiful art form would be? What would you say to your younger self about where you are right now?
Well, I know for sure that I thought that I could understand and control what my journey was going to be. Like, I thought I had this all planned out. And I never thought, even in the last 3 years, all of us have just had to adapt. But, I thought I'd be here talking about a different movie this year, And then here I ended up working with Lin at his house, away from my family. And then sitting with all you, I would have never been able to ever guess that in a million years. So yeah, just don't worry about the journey. Whatever it is, just go on it and try to enjoy it. Try not to worry so much. I mean, editors worry all the time. We just worry about everything. Worry about the stakes for the studio, the producer, the director. We're trying to protect the actors. We're just warriors. We fix problems. And anyways, I'm rambling a little bit, but I guess I would just say stop worrying, enjoy the journey. And
I would say to try not to take it too seriously and just enjoy what you do. And if you keep working as hard at it as you can, that with a little luck, it'll work out. And I think it's just keep it simple.
I think I'd tell my younger self that life is going to throw you a lot of curveballs, some amazing and good, and some are really, really difficult, whether it's work or personal life. And that all of those things form who you are, and you bring, if you're a storyteller, an editor, director, whatever, you bring all of those experiences with you to your work in terms of your love of character and understanding people and human emotion. And so not to be in a hurry, because the older you are, the more life experience you have to help put on that screen and to kind of understand the work in a deeper way.
I guess the main thing would be to just go for it. Remind, like, you can kind of do it and try to enjoy it rather than. I definitely always felt like I was trying to rush and get as much done as possible, and I feel like I could have slowed down a little bit and enjoyed it, and enjoyed the relationships that were made, and just enjoyed those things a little more rather than just trying to get the next thing and just to relax a tiny bit. Yeah.
I mean, there's some, I'd say not to lose sight of the great joys of the job that we do, and even at the end of a long Oscars campaign, there was a screening last week of Dune, and it was with this young crowd, and we went in at the end, and the music was loud, and the audience was like, they were stamping their feet and applauding, and it was so cool, and such a kind of great experience to be with that cinema, a packed house, watching a film that's been out for a couple of months. It was like a fillip for all of us, and I think if I look back, it takes a long time. All of us have taken, a reasonable amount of time to get here. And in that path, there are lots of setbacks and disappointments. And honestly, you can get really crestfallen when you can't, especially, when you're trying to get your first big break. Maybe you're an assistant trying to move up to an editor, or you're trying to move, as I did, from arts documentary into drama. And the only thing I'd say to my younger self would be that in all those also-rans that I can review in my life, when I didn't get a job that I really wanted, something came along that was perfect. Absolutely. And took me along. Mm-hmm. And without exception, something better came along.
Yeah, I worked with a producer who was actually a post supervisor 20 years ago, and we worked on this little musical together, and I was an assistant editor. And then 20 years later, he's like hiring me for a film that he's producing. I was like, I don't think I would ever have known like I would get a break, and that became a huge break in my career. And I've talked to like I'm sure a lot of people here, to students especially, and they're like, I want to do what you do. Like, I know, but it's going to take a really long time. It's going to take you over 20 years to get to this place, probably. But don't worry, you're going to get there. You have to have faith that you're doing what you love, and then you're going to get breaks, and you're going to meet people, you're going to build your networks, you have to be really patient.
I mean, as you said earlier, like editing chose you, and all of you have something interesting as you're talking about, the relationships that were formed, not taking it too seriously, telling yourself to slow down, telling yourself to just remind yourself that your individual and collective journey is yours. And it might not look like anyone else's, and there's no template to it. There's no one path. It's going to be with twists and turns, but staying open to what it can be and how that impacts your life. thank you all for just your contribution and your individual and collective contribution today on this couch in this beautiful home, talking about your impact on cinema and on film. And thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
For making it all more visible. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here.